Today we are talking about this book, The Last to See Her by Courtney Evan Tate. Your eyes do not deceive you. I am wearing a cape and no, you cannot have it. This book was a Goodreads recommendation under the category thriller. Now, looking at the book cover and the description, what are you thinking? Just shout it out. Look at the description. This either says to me, Gone Girl, or maybe a Girl on the Train, but it looks and feels a little bit like Gone Girl. There is a sister named Jen. She is going through a divorce. She's getting away from her cheating husband for the weekend, going on a girls only weekend adventure. After a night of drinking and out on the town, Meg and Jen, the sisters, go up to their hotel room and Jen throws her wedding ring off the top balcony. Then she says, I need to get some air. She walks down through the lobby, out the doors, never to be seen again. As secrets unfold, we find out what happened to Jen, what led her to that balcony, and where is Jen? Is she alive? And who did it? This book was not Gone Girl by any stretch of the imagination, and this is a 1 star. This is The Last to See Her Rant. I know that there has been a lot of talk in the community lately about whether you should give somebody a 1-star review or a bad review. If it's not better just to not say anything at all. However, I'm also a creator, not an author, and I'm not going to pretend that making one of these videos is the same as investing in writing a book. There is a lot of time, effort, and energy that goes into writing a book, especially a book of this length, getting it published, getting all the notes that you need for revisions, trying to get somebody to pick it up, and seeing it all the way through publishing is a big, daunting task. For me to sit and criticize this book is challenging. However, as a creator, when someone tells me something, that's a gift. Because it's like if I have ketchup on my shirt, I walk around with ketchup on my shirt for 10 years. Why didn't you tell me this? Why didn't you tell me this 10 years ago so I can start working on it? If you don't like my lighting or sound or my set, let me know, give me a suggestion. It's something that I can work on. If somebody just goes, thumbs down, that doesn't mean anything to me other than it hurts me. Like, I spend a lot of time in my, creative endeavors to put forth a video that I think is engaging and spend a lot of time reading the book and coming up with unique content and ideas. Then when you just give me a thumbs down, I don't know what that means or how you cannot improve when someone just gives you a 1 star because you don't know what to work on. But when someone sits down and takes the time to tell you, these are points that I had issue with, then the ball is in your court as a creator. I can choose to say, I'm gonna change that if it's within my control. If you don't like my age, that's not something that I can change. If you don't like my lighting, of course, I can add different lighting or sound. I can change things up. I can add in more B-roll. I can do things. Most of the things that people have a complaint with, I can change. Authors, same thing. They need feedback. That's my personal opinion so that they can improve. You don't want to surround yourself by people who are just yes people. If you even say something stupid, they just say yes because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Those are not the people who are telling you the truth. That's not who you want in your team. Sometimes, yes, you do want people to give you that encouragement, but you do need people in your camp that are going to tell you this is a bad idea before you invest a lot of time and effort into something that they know is going to be a failure. If you just made a few tweaks that they had kindly pointed out, that you could have changed things. That being said, this is a 1-star book. This was billed as a thriller. However, it wasn't thrilling. This was a chore to read. The thing I was most excited about was my audiobook. I learned how to increase the speed, so I was reading it on 2x at the end. And I'll explain to you how I usually read a book if I'm using the audiobook and what happened in this case. Usually when I read the audiobook, and I'll follow along in the printed copy as well. But this time, and usually when I do that, when I'm following along in the printed copy, usually I'm ahead in the printed copy and the voice is catching up with me. In this instance, I needed the audiobook to keep me on track, just to finish this book, because I didn't want to do it. This was a chore to read this book. And I'll tell you why it was a chore. First of all, with a thriller, a big part of the thrill is the ending. We knew who it was. At least I knew who it was. It was pretty clear, at least to me, probably in the first third of the book, 1/3, 33% through, we knew who it was. It wasn't a surprise. So what was the buildup? There was no buildup at the end. We knew what happened. We knew who had her. It was pretty clear what was going to happen. Why did I read the other 2/3 of the book? I don't know. Probably just to shoot this movie for you guys. Honestly, it was horrible. It was not page turning. And in addition to that, there were things that did not make sense. So first we have Meg, one of the sisters. The sisters, they talk all the time about the same things over and over and over and over again. For example, Joe is a good man. He's a good man. He's a good man. He's a good man. They talked about that so many times. It was ridiculous ad nauseum. It felt like the book could have been 75% less if they just cut out all the talking about how people are a good man. Who cares? And then they would talk about we've grown apart and how many conversations they've had about growing apart. Who cares? Like, just move on already. It was just, Then we talk about Meg and Joe. Meg constantly talks about how that she has been married for a really long time. The two of them aren't the same people that they once were. She makes some comment about how Joe's not good enough for her because he's a blue collar worker. I honestly do not understand that comment. There are a lot of blue collar workers that actually make more money than white collar workers. I grew up in this really small town. One year when we were driving by this one stretch of road, someone had cut back this tree and you could see a castle back in the trees. We didn't know who it belonged to at the time, so we're like, oh yeah, that's just the castle. And one day in high school after track practice, I was hanging out with this other guy and this other girl. We were just kind of bored, nothing else really to do other than, look at the cows out in the middle of nowhere. So the guy says, you know what? Let's go to my dad's house. He has a ping pong table. Sure. We pile in the car. He's giving me these turn-by-turn directions. This was before GPS. And sure enough, we pull up into the castle. To which, of course, I very subtly said, what does your dad do? I need to pick a different career. Whatever your dad does, that's what I need to do. And he said he's a plumber. He owns his own plumbing business. Here is the most successful person that I know of. Blue collar worker. There's nothing wrong with being a blue collar worker. Plus, Meg was saying stuff like, oh, it's that Joe doesn't have this vocabulary. Okay, let's take Thad, for example. He's a lawyer. Maybe he knows some phrases like res ipsa loquitur, jurisprudence, mens rea. Does that do it for you, Meg? It doesn't make sense. Who cares if a lawyer knows these Latin phrases? It doesn't have anything to do with anything. Meg didn't come off as the intellectual either. Where was she reading these wonderful books and her exquisite vocabulary? It didn't exist and it did not make sense. And on top of it all, what did she do? She goes for this guy, Hawk, who is a police officer. He is a blue-collar worker. In fact, he even says, this is at the very beginning when he was asking about the ransom. He was talking about, well, what do you do for work? And then what does your husband do for work? And she says, oh, Joe, he does well enough for himself. And Hawk says, well, I do well enough for myself too. Essentially saying Joe and I are on the same page. He goes on to say, but nobody's asking me for ransom. He's saying that they are the same. So if they're both, why is Meg all into Hawk if she just said, I don't like blue collar workers for whatever fictitious reason she's coming up with? It doesn't make any sense. The only thing I could come up with is that Meg is shallow, because every time she talks about Hawk, she's like, oh, my eyes kept going to him. Is it the reality that Joe just let himself go and he has like this, you know, maybe tire belly and she doesn't like it? He's not chiseled anymore. What do you look like, Meg? You think you look awesome? Ugh, no. It was so unbelievable. Then they have Jen, the main character, who leaves her laptop on the plane, and then they call the police or call her cell phone looking for her, which the police have. Then they go to the airport and pick it up. Then they just open it up and they just start reading all these characters. Number one, why would you leave your computer on the airplane, especially if she was planning something to happen to Meg, this revenge plot? Why would you leave it on the plane? Doesn't make sense. Two, why in the world wouldn't she have a password of some sort? This is an author who has unpublished manuscripts on her computer. Let's say a fan recognizes her and they steal her laptop. They would have her entire book and they could just publish it online, and she would be out her manuscript. It would be just published online, no way to get it back. Of course, you would put a password on the computer. It just did not make sense. Plus, it did not make sense. This was so nails on chalkboard. It was very difficult to finish. There was no point in finishing it. It was so redundant. And the pregnant pauses, too many pregnant pauses, overused phrases, overtold stories. I know, I've heard a million times, Joe and Meg drifted apart and Meg's really a good person and Joe's a good person. I don't care anymore. I don't care. The only thing I'm happy about is that this book's over. It wasn't anything like Gone Girl at all. It was boring. With a thriller, there's a few things. One, it needs to be page turning, but what causes it to be page turning? One, it's the way in which it's written, and you need to do a couple of things. When you write the book, you should have varied sentence structures. At the beginning, you can have more flowery prose, you can have longer sentences. Towards the end, you might have short pieces of dialogue, short sentences. And when you're going through the book, you're starting to flip through the pages and your eyes are scanning very quickly. And it makes you feel like you're running and you want to catch the bad guy. You want to figure out what happened and your adrenaline's going and you're flipping through the book as fast as possible and you're reading as fast as possible and your heart's thumping and you're so into it and you have to figure out who did it. That's part of the excitement. Unfortunately, this author, sentence structure stayed the same throughout the book. So you didn't have that physical aspect of turning those pages and that acceleration towards the end. It was all stagnant. And I would say towards the end, some of the chapters got even longer, the opposite of kind of what you want to do. This book just wasn't written in a very compelling way. If anything, I would suggest that the author read. There are 3 books I thought were really good. These are my all-time favorite thrillers. It would be Gone Girl, The Last Time I Lied, and The Girl on the Train. Those 3 I thought were very page-turning, exciting. I didn't know what was going to happen at all, and it just blew my mind at the end. Everything and how intricate it all was, and it was all woven together, and it felt like it made sense when you look back at it. This book, it just wasn't there yet. And I don't mean to say I want to go back to and acknowledge and appreciate the author for her hard work and all that she did to push this through to publication. Hopefully Jen stays long gone because she is boring. So is Meg. If you believe that books create ideas and ideas change the world, let's change the world one book at a time. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I'm Lisa of Troy. Peace.